Been some great themes today, and hopefully it set the stage. I'm going to have to fly through this, but everybody's done such a good job covering so much material. Hopefully this will all go smoothly. In 2017, the Barnegat Bay Partnership with DEP and many of the organizations in this room started the planning of its comprehensive conservation and management plan. And this is the themes. This is the first paragraph in that document in the water quality section, with no edits. And basically, I think you've heard all of this message repeated here today, so I'm not going to go through it. But then we are a water quality program. We're funded by EPA and established by a small portion of the Clean Water Act. And so it should be no surprise to anyone that reducing nutrient, contaminant, debris, et cetera, should be a primary action of our program. And so this is. And so all of the work today is consistent with the larger, bigger picture plans that were put together and set in motion by partners years ago. And that brings us to the watershed management plan for the Toms River. The goals and objectives that were identified by a very, very large stakeholder group with diverse representation are identified in black, red, and blue. I'm going to run through just a few of these things today. Rob and the folks in the Matitaconk have done a great job. Their plan was approved in 2013, somewhere around there. So they've been working for more than a decade. This plan is still under review and hopefully will be rolled out to stakeholders within the next couple of months. The biggest issue we all face, is change to our watershed. This is very quick explanation. This is the Toms River watershed. You can recognize the Sunken Branch, Davenport, Wrangell Brook, Jakes, et cetera. This photo is an aerial photo from 1950. Basically, the only thing living in this area were chickens probably at that point in time. This is that same area in 2010. I'm going to pick that one small area. That's that area in 1950. That was the version in 2010. So there's been tremendous land use and development in the watershed, and these are the problems that we're having to deal with in establishment of these watershed plans. And as Rob very eloquently went through the different steps in the EPA planning process, one of the first things you need to do is to address known problems. And he had a nice list. This is a little more of a graphical presentation. I don't want to go through all of these. We're focused mostly on the pathogen, nutrient, and DO issues here. But there are a number of them throughout the Toms River subwatershed, and they're in some surprising places. We attribute nitrogen loading and runoff from the developed parts of the watershed, and here you can see some of the worst problems we actually have in the upper headland areas of the watershed. So there's some surprising findings that have come out of this, and these are the problems that we're going to have to address as we move forward. Now, one of the first things we did in taking on this plan was basically just get out and look around the plan, look around the watershed, and just with Matitaconk, riparian zone protection enhancement is a priority throughout the watershed. The two photos on the upper section show what a stream looks like in good condition. And then we have very different perspectives on the bottom. Although the homeowners on the bottom left might like that nice, neat channeled view they have, this presents a variety of water quality and other problems. And the one on the right actually shows the stormwater system being overwhelmed. You can see the corrugated pipe that has mostly been obliterated and lots of sand that's run off into the system. So this is a problem essentially throughout the development parts of this watershed. What are we going to do about it? One of the things that we've already suggested and incorporated into the plan is a restoration of one of these stream riparian corridors. You can see this is Sunken Branch I just presented in that first photo. We actually have developed a tentative draft restoration plan that would change that habitat and increase the width of those buffers and produce a very different stream corridor than we have now. This is one of the more expensive projects in this watershed. It's not yet been approved by the stakeholders, but this is something that we hope to move forward with the development of the plan for the Toms River watershed. Education is a big thing. Everybody's mentioned the fertilizer law. The soil health law is another piece of landmark New Jersey legislation. Former director of the Ocean County Soil Conservation Director was fond of saying, don't treat your soil like dirt. What we see here in those two figures is that soils throughout much of the watershed have a density close to that of concrete. And when you have a density that high, very, very little water gets back into the ground. So one of the things that we're emphasizing throughout the watershed, and as is supported by the Soil Restoration Act, is increasing pervious cover throughout the watershed. And we already have a program that's been working very hard for a number of years with the DEP and other support, a Jersey Friendly Yards program, which promotes establishment of native plants and methods to produce pervious cover. So these are efforts that are going to continue to be a focus throughout the watershed. As Rob mentioned, basin restoration is a big thing. In this particular subwatershed, the Toms River subwatershed, there's something like 850 stormwater basins. We've surveyed almost all of these in some way, shape, or form, and we've identified a subset of these that we believe should be restored. We've already seen pictures of low flow channels, et cetera, and before and after figures, but this is going to continue to be an important part of our effort. And as in other areas, we do have some septic and sewerage issues. This is a map of all of the existing septic systems. There are, you can see the upper Toms River is lined with septic systems. There's a huge concentration of them around Pine Lake. So we've got a lot of work to do and can address significant loads, not only of nitrogen, but also of phosphorus if we were to take these on. One of the approaches we've tried to emphasize throughout is a preferred method called a treatment train approach. This is an example we're including in our proposed plan down closer to the bay. And there's no single thing. This basically involves stacking up a number of different kinds of processes, methods, and approaches to do different kinds of things, not only to capture stormwater, but also to provide some opportunities for it to be processed before it discharges, in this case, almost directly to the bay. As many of you know, the last couple of years, there's been a lot of federal funding, bill funding that's been distributed through a variety of means. We're one of those means. We've received approximately $1 million and will be receiving about $1 million annually for the next 3 or 4 years. One of the conditions on our spending these funds is that at least 40% of those address problems in overburdened communities. And you might think that there's not much opportunity in Ocean County for, that we have that many overburdened communities, but essentially half municipalities in Ocean County do have one or more census blocks where there are opportunities for us to spend our funds. And we're actually excited. We're going to release a GFO, which is our equivalent of an RFP, to promote stormwater projects and improvements in these overburdened communities. And when will that come out, Andrew? Sometime in the late winter, midwinter? Okay, so here's an opportunity for funding to continue the work on these activities. And as Rob said very eloquently, education is an important component of these activities. We're delighted to have so many partners here today and so many partners online to work with us. Education is a really important tool and opportunity for all of us that we hope you'll join with us in doing. And then, lastly, or next to last, we do have to keep in mind that conditions are changing, climate's changing, the weather is changing, and we need to keep that in consideration. And lastly, with regard to where we're going with all this, the TMDL is an important tool to get to a lot of things. But in addition to just improving the water quality itself, it also impacts a lot of other things that are important to us, including most of the things on this list. So we hope you'll all join us in that effort, and I thank you all for your attention.
Thanks, Dr. Hales. I'm not a scientist in any way, shape, or form, as you know. First of all, I want to laud Brick Township for the work they've done. That's a tremendous job. But the question I have is, I don't know if it's answerable or not answerable. As much work as Brick Township has done, there are other towns, and we all share Barnegat Bay. It belongs to all of us, and what we do affects Barnegat Bay. My thought is that the county, if they're able to, come up with a set of criteria for continued development throughout the county, where despite what one town wants to do and what another town wants to do, they all could be held to a standard of making sure that the bay is protected, that all the watershed is protected. And I'm wondering if that is something possible, or would you know if law preempts a county from doing something like that?
Well, I'm not a land use or legal expert about land use law in New Jersey, but I think the common understanding is that land use is locally determined. The way the TMDL works, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'll start to answer that. The department hopes to achieve reductions in nutrient loading to the bay, in part through the MS4 program. And that's a dynamic program. So with the continuing monitoring in place, there'll be a periodic assessment as to the progress we're making. And what I suspect is likely to happen, as has happened elsewhere, is that those rules change and become increasingly rigorous, for lack of a better word, but to address the issues and the problems that occur. And, you know, even with these planning documents, you might think that a watershed plan for the Toms River Basin, you could assess everything. You know, in our assessments, we looked at several hundred sites, and in some cases, we can narrow down a problem to a certain geographic area, but you might still need more information to figure out exactly what to do. So this is an iterative process. You know, we got into this mess with development over a 50-plus year problem. I hope it doesn't take 50 years to solve it, but it's not going to be achieved overnight, and it's important that everybody here be invested in that effort. So that's the most important thing, and that's why we all think education is so important to this effort. Thank you.
We did get one question in the chat asking if today's slides will be available.
Yes, this is being taped, recorded, et cetera, and we have all presentations so we can make them available.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, today's presentation has been recorded, and the individual presentations will be posted. We'll send out a follow-up email to everybody that registered here in person and/or online. We'll send out an email advising you where the location of that information is, so you can have it back for reference. And before I close out, is there any additional questions? We very much appreciate all the comments and everybody's input that we received today. You've given us a lot to think about. Our second session, we're going to delve into the science that serves as the basis for this nitrogen water quality target and the TMDL reductions. We anticipate having that sometime in the new year. We're going to go back, strategize, think about the questions that you asked us today, what additional information we need to put together, and then we'll have a follow-up session where we'll delve into the nitty-gritty of the science and hopefully answer any questions that you have at that time. Then for our third session, you heard about some of the ongoing initiatives in the Bay. We want to incorporate this into our TMDL implementation plan, and we want to continue this dialogue with everyone at the third session. So we'll focus on implementation of projects, initiatives, and best management practices, again, through the MS4 program, also voluntary efforts, and hear more about the Metedeconk, Toms River, and other watershed-based plans that are and will be coming to fruition in the new year as well. There's a lot of information, so we wanted to give you time to digest this. When the department comes out with the TMDL, we will do so later on in the calendar year 2024, but we wanted everybody in the watershed to come from a place of comfort. We wanted everyone to understand the science behind the standard, the TMDL. We wanted folks to feel comfortable with the implementation part of the TMDL. So that's why we're having these 3 sessions before we formally propose the TMDL, again, at that time, for formal public comment. So during this time period leading up to that, your feedback, your comments, your input, that is everything that we can take into consideration so that when we do propose the document, we hope it's to your satisfaction and that at that time, the comments will be minimal and/or anything would have been anticipated ahead of time and addressed in the TMDL document. So we feel it's really, really important to have the stakeholdering process. We appreciate everybody that was here, stayed on the line for 3 hours, and those of you that came in person. So the department will be here for a little while longer. Again, we thank all the stakeholders that helped put this session together today, and we look forward to seeing you in the new year. Thank you.